Dismantling anti Black racism involves not only systemic change, but community change. Serving justice to Black communities means providing resources and support to Black people who have been continuously traumatized by the racism for generations. Today, we're discussing how Black people can care for their mental health and emotional well being while fighting for justice.
Thank you. We're in the midst of a global pandemic. I mentioned earlier that it's had a disproportionate impact on Black and racialized people, particularly low-income people. On top of that, we've had the protests that I've mentioned. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of pain. And while I think the conversation right now is focused on activism and being in the trenches and demanding change, there is the question of dealing with this trauma and healing. So I wanted to turn the conversation to that topic exactly. What are some ways that we can begin a conversation around healing and coming out of the trauma, or at least managing the trauma?
So, being on the front lines right now in this movement is definitely traumatic. I'm not going to lie and say that, I'm strong all the time. And, a lot of people like, oh, you're so strong. Wow. How do you guys do it? How do you do it? It's a day-to-day struggle. Sometimes I don't want to get out of bed. Sometimes there are blows that are so devastating that it makes you question why you're still doing this work. But I manage to get up every single day because as a leader, I have learned that it is imperative to look outside of myself and remember why I'm fighting. And it's not just for me, but it's for the future of our young Black generations coming up. But it's also for the present. And I've never come to that realization until being in this specific uprising that I never even thought I'd see within my lifetime. I'm still young. I'm only 20 years old and just turned 20 at that. But when people would ask me before, like, where do you see this movement going and why are you fighting? I would always respond for the future. But now I can say I'm not just fighting for the future, but I'm fighting for the present. And that's what keeps me going every single day. But I'm not going to lie and say it's easy. Like, my team and I were on the front lines and everything really popped off when it was ground zero. Like, the thing was just chaos. And just a quick story. On that Friday, I believe it was May 29th, we were on the front lines in Minnesota. And after a long day of protesting and organizing, we lost our car. Our car was far gone. We didn't know where it is. We've been on the ground helping people, protesting, trying to make sure that everyone stayed safe, that we didn't know where we were. So we started walking. It was late at night and we were on this street. It was just the 9 of us. And we ended up seeing police at the end of the block. And so we're like, okay, oh Lord, like, all right, if we get in contact, we're going to come in contact with the police. And if they ask us any questions, we're going to let them know that we are unarmed. We were not a part of the looting and setting things on fire, because obviously we were right in the middle of that. Things were burning around us. There were businesses that were shattered. Everything just looked like a scene of a movie. And while we were walking, I was on Instagram Live, so I caught everything in real time. And when we came in contact with the police officers, and when I say in contact, I mean when they saw us, when we were at a visible range, because we weren't even like this to them. Mm-hmm. We were still at a good distance. As soon as the police officers saw us, they didn't even give us a chance to question us or anything like that. They pulled their guns out on us immediately and flashed their lights, and they told us, stop at once or we'll shoot. And at that moment, I thought that I was going to lose my life. I didn't even expect to be speaking to you guys today, let alone see 20 years old. My team and I, as soon as we saw those guns pulled out on us, we ran. By the grace of God, there was a corner that we were able to quickly go around. And a lot of people ask us, why did you run? My personal response to that is, I wasn't just going to stand there and let them shoot me. If they were going to kill me, I would have went out trying to save my life. Because whether you stand and run, it's a lose-lose situation most of the time with police officers. So we ran, and by the grace of God, they didn't shoot us in the back. But that experience was definitely traumatic for me and my team members. And we haven't even had a chance to really sit back and process that the police all killed us for absolutely no reason. And by the grace of God, I was also able to catch that in real time on Instagram Live. Because if I would have explained the situation to any other media outlet or anyone else and I didn't have actual video evidence of it, they would have
Right.
called us liars. So I'm saying overall, to wrap it all up, that mental health therapy, mental health resources for activists and organizers, not just on the front lines, but behind the scenes, is imperative as well. And for us to come together as a we're not only going to do this work, but prioritize our mental health and well-being, because if we're not okay, we can't effectively serve anyone else and really help push this movement forward.
For sure. Anyone else want to talk about mental health and healing while we are trying to address anti-Black racism?
Healing for me is a really big part of my journey, and something that I've been trying to tell all my peers, the activists behind the scenes and on the front lines, is that taking care of yourself will be a part of the revolution. Taking care of yourself will be a part of that revolution. And it's because a lot of us sometimes feel this pressure of informing and education and being the loudest person in the room and, showing up for each other, that we often forget about ourselves. And we need to understand that we all have different roles and we all have different lanes, and the lane isn't always the front lines. I think it's powerful, what frontline activists like myself and what Nipola and everybody else in this chat, what we do is so valuable, but there are other lanes and other roles that we also need to take up, and that might be a healer, that might be therapy, that might be support worker, that might be peer supporter, that might be a friend, that might be taking rest. It might be, having shelter for someone who's in need. We all have different roles, and I think it's important that we don't feel this pressure of fulfilling every single role that there is out there, and that, by taking care of ourselves, we can actually get the work done to take care of each other. And that's really important. And I think we also need to hold space to unpack the racial trauma that exists and lives within our DNA. We often normalize what we experience, and just tapping into what you said about the resilience thing, and how we kind of get told at young that we're so resilient, and we never unpack that. Why are we resilient? Where does that come from? Why are people telling us that? Why are people making sure that we know that? We never unpack that it's embedded in racial trauma, and the trauma that is so severe that we experience on a very daily basis. We don't hold space for ourselves enough to kind of talk about how we could, self-preserve, how we could restore ourselves, restore our energy, and take care of ourselves in a more effective way. I think anger and rage is so valid and it's important, but we also need to mobilize in a way that we could also support each other in empowering ways. Not just I think it's important that we tell each other, Black Lives Matter. That's important. But do we actually mean it? Does it actually hold weight if we're not taking care of ourselves? We can't just keep shouting Black Lives Matter when we don't actually take care of ourselves. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, then the statement might not be true. If we matter, we would be pouring into ourselves more. If we matter, we'll be going to that therapist, going to our mom, going to our dad, going to whoever is around us to tell them, this is what I'm going through, this is how I need to be supported. We need to start affirming ourselves and holding space to be vulnerable, to not be strong that day, to rest, to take breaks. Those are all a part of the revolution, because we've been told at a very young age that we must work 3 times hard to be seen, 3 times hard to have our voices amplified. And it's not fair, it's not right. And that exhaustion is going to really harm us and hurt us, and it already is doing that. So I think as much as the frontline work is important, and I'm very proud of myself, Nipola, everybody else who's doing that work, there's other things that need to be done internally, mentally, emotionally, in order for the real work to get done.